Hello everyone, and I'm Zylashi Gamer, and today I'm going to be talking about Final Fantasy 13-2 Unbiased Opinion Review. I'm unbiased because a lot of fanboys get mad because Final Fantasy 13 didn't live up to their expectations. But personally, I never really got too big into the Final Fantasy games, and this is actually the second game that I played through, the first one being Final Fantasy 9. And I had a bad experience with that, so I never really played the other ones. But this one, I'm gonna give a review because it was actually alright, and I feel like mine would be more unbiased since I don't have that raw background to go off of. 13-2 is the second installment in a three-part series, starting with Final Fantasy 13 and ending with Final Fantasy Lightning Returns or Final Fantasy 13-3. Before I talk about the story, I'd like to talk about the gameplay, starting with the mechanics, then the Crystarium, the leveling, then the monsters, to the classes, and then ending with the paradigm shifts. So I'm going to have footage of the game, me playing the game in the background as I'm talking about all these. And what I forgot to do is show a picture of the Crystarium leveling system. But what it basically is little spheres, and you spend so many Crystarium points that you get from killing monsters to fill a sphere with one of the job classes. And I'll explain those later on. And you draw the spheres eventually draw a picture, and once you make the whole picture, you go to the next level, but it's the same picture over and over again. But that's how you level up, and it's fairly easy, it's not too difficult, so you shouldn't have a problem if you're new to the game figuring that out. Monsters level up in the same way, where you have to fill up spheres, except they use crystals that monsters drop. So you have to kill monsters to level up your monsters by giving them the crystals that the monsters drop. I may mention that again, it gets pretty complicated. As you can see, there's only 3 monsters in your party at one time, and each has a specific role. And again, I'll explain the roles later. And what you want to do is set up your specific party pack. So there's party paradigms, and then they have the customization of the packs, as you can see right there. And you can set these monsters that you have to help you out in battle, which you'll need to. You'll need to have a monster to help you out. And each monster has a unique Pharaoh link, and each one helps with a different situation, so you want to mess around with that and figure it out. For example, Behemoth is a commando, but he gives health to the party when you use his Pharaoh link. For each paradigm pack, you can choose whether to attack wide, attack normally, or attack one individual, as you can see from these X's that cross, or they have the big square, the triangle. I currently have my set to go fight Yomi, so that's why I have most of my things set as Sentinel, and then I have my medic. I'm not really going to use my Ravager right now. So when creating your paradigm pack, you get 6 slots, and in each slot you can have a combination of 3 different classes or jobs. And Sarah and Noel are one of the classes, and then your monster is the last class. Now let's talk about the classes. So the 6 classes are Ravager, which is your magic, your Saboteur, which is more of your poison and peril, your D-Shell, your D-Protect. And poison in this game is amazing. Like in the other games, I really never bothered to poison, but here, every time I have a chance, I try to throw poison on there because it is a good damage over time factor. This is your best dot factor. And even with the Yomi fight, this is a good example because every time he went out, I would try to get poison right on him, and then I would switch to Commando, which is also one of the other classes, to do damage because Yomi is really resistant to magic. You also get your Sentinel, and then your Medic, and your Synergist. And I didn't have a Synergist monster in my party, but you are going to want a Synergist because they give you faith and bravery. Noel and Sarah do not learn faith or bravery. Along with some of the other classes, Sarah and Noel each learn different moves, or as in Sarah will learn more in one class than Noel will in the other class. So Noel learns Protecta, but Sarah doesn't. Stuff like that. The next thing I want to talk about is monster staggering points, which is when they're most vulnerable, and Yomi is not a good monster to show this on, but the Immortal is, and I'll show you some footage of that. So here's the fight with the Immortal, and for staggering, The fastest way to stagger somebody is using magic, so your Ravengers. And depending on your weapon, you could have chaining level 5, 1 through 5, 5 being the best chaining. And different monsters help to maintain the chaining. Like I know for my Sentinel, if I hit him with my Feral Link, if I hit the Immortal with the Feral Link, it'll maintain the chain better. And I think Commando does too, it keeps it up there. So there you see I got him staggered. And what I should have done is killed the sword first, but I just wanted to show you guys how the stagger was. The Immortal will take more damage. The higher the stagger, the more damage you'll deal. So you want to try to get that stagger bar up without having the yellow bar diminish, because then he'll be out of his stagger point. And this is a good time to use your monster's feral links because they can rack it up too. Or use Sarah's Ultima move, which hers is Ultima Arrow, and she does racks up a lot of damage. And Noel's ultimate is a commando move, so you have to be under commando to even use his ultimate move. And I'll let you see Noel's ultimate real quick. His Meteor Javelin. So there you go, you can see it. And he'll do the most damage at that point. After every battle, you'll get graded on 1 to 5 stars. And I think it goes on time, so the faster you kill the monster, the better the time will be. You also get equipment or material based on how well you do in the fight. So I didn't get anything from the Immortal, but from Yomi, I did get a Tear of Woe. And you can get like more rarer drops if you do better in the fight. Like I mentioned, every fight is situational and you're going to want to set up how you want to take on the monster. And certain setups will work better than others. But I'm going to have that playing in the background while I talk about the story now. The story of Final Fantasy 13-2 was actually pretty good. It was one of the reasons I still kept playing the game. And like after the game itself, there's a lot of gameplay in it. You could get like 20 plus hours if you really want to just go through it fast, or if you really wanted to take your time, 40 plus hours. Like I know right now I have 100 and some hours in the game because I'm trying to level up my blue chocobo. I don't want to give too much of the story away, but it begins with Noel going back in time to find Sarah so that Sarah can help Lightning in a different time. I'm not showing cutscenes because I don't want to ruin the game for anybody. The main antagonist is Caius Ballad, and that is the person who you'll be fighting against throughout the game. The story takes a lot of twists and turns, and I personally believe that the game was pretty well done. Like, yeah, it's pretty confusing at times, but the story itself is pretty nice. Now that we've gone over that, let's go over some of the cons of the game. One thing I really didn't like about the game is that there's no control over the camera. It just goes wherever it wants. Like right there, I was looking through the grass. I couldn't even see what I was fighting. And this is more of a problem with the taller enemies. Another thing is collecting fragments in the game will eventually let you get like abilities to control the camera, but it's really only used during cutscenes, so it doesn't really add anything. Also, you get other abilities like to make monsters spawn more frequently or less frequently, or Battle Mania where more rare bosses appear. And I bring that up because monster leveling is a bitch. It takes so long to find the right monsters to get the right crystals, because only certain monsters drop certain crystals. Like the first levels are super easy, and then once you get to the level 4 and 5, the monster material is tougher to find. Even with more monsters appearing frequently in the battle menu, it's going to take time. And then there's also monster infusion, which takes time because then you have to level up other monsters to infuse into your monster to make it even better. Another thing I was also nitpicky with was the paradigm shifts. I'm playing on the PlayStation 3, and I have to keep pressing the triggers and then having to scroll through all the paradigms so I can find the right one. And then once I do switch, there's like a second delay where I can't attack at all. And you know, when you gotta get those quick heals, you want to heal right away. There's been times where I was wiped out because of the paradigm shift changing and the monster attacking. Same thing with changing leaders. It takes a little bit of time, and that I just wasn't a fan of that. And then when you get your Sentinel out, the point of the Sentinel is to draw aggro from the monster so that it doesn't attack you or your team member, and it only attacks that monster. It's basically your tank. Except sometimes the Sentinel doesn't do a great job at tanking because it brings the enemy's attacks to the group, and that kind of annoyed me at times because I didn't want to take certain damage, and I was getting damage anyways because the Sentinel was bringing it over to us. Let's talk about carrying capacity. The carrying capacity is 100, and a lot of the items that you get use between 20 to 75 carrying capacity, so 100 really isn't that much to work with, and I really didn't like that as I played through the game. And although they had a good story, there wasn't much character development. When I'm referring to character development, I mean change of the character, because you know why they're doing it, and that pretty much stays the same throughout the whole thing. You do kind of grow close to them, but I think that's just because you spend that whole time doing the story with them more than their character being super developed and you liking what they are trying to change to. Just to be fair, over the 3 games, there is some sort of character development, but just not individually in each game. Personally, I didn't like Monster Infusion. I mean, it's a really good concept, but it just takes so long, and you can beat the game without even having to do it. So it's kind of just for those that want to be super elites or have bragging rights. The upside to that is that you do get a choice of how you want to make your monster, be it however you want. I really don't know. I didn't really take my much time into it, except for my blue chocobo. Now that we have the cons finished, let's look at all the pros. I really like that they give the game diversity with the paradigms packs, and even with weapons. You can choose your weapon according to what you want to do. Sometimes just having the best maxed out stats isn't what you want. Maybe you want to chain better so you can stagger the monster better so you can kill him quicker. Or sometimes the monster is super resistant to staggering, so then you don't want to stagger and you just want to do the most damage you can. I really enjoyed having to prepare before battle to make sure that I had the best strategy to go in there to take down the boss or the monsters that I was fighting, like the Longu. That I was really impressed by that. And I just can't say this enough. That story is so damn good, and I really like that they have different endings, those paradoxical endings. And then there's the side quests. There is a lot of side questing in this game if you choose to do it. And I really like that because it gave me something to distract me from the main story when I didn't want to do it all or I needed to make some extra experience points quicker. I know I've said that it's fairly easy to beat the game, and that's once you know what you're doing, because it can get confusing and you can get lost and get frustrated a lot through the game because you don't know where you should be going. But if you take that aside, the game is really good. And I really like that they did that too. Made it hard so you're not sure whether you should be going here or doing that. And having to find those wild artifacts so you can open up a gate to get to it. Which also sucked. I thought about putting that as a con, but it did add to this part of it. Because the fighting itself isn't too bad. You can sit there and like just auto attack the whole time if you really wanted to, and that's easy. But then when they make knowing what to do hard, it kind of balances out. The last pro I had is the DLC. The downloadable content actually adds a lot to the game. The Colosseum, it gives purpose to leveling up your monsters so that you can take down these better monsters, and then you can get those monsters and use them in your party, and that's awesome. Now for the final verdict. Although the game may not have a memorable soundtrack or the best character development, if you are new to the Final Fantasy action role-playing game, this game is a decent place to start. If you just want to go through with the story, it is also worthwhile. If you want more than just story, for example, you also want character development, it may not be the game for you. That being said, the game is definitely worth the playthrough. That was my unbiased opinion. I'm Zelasha Gamer. This is how long it takes you when you don't use poison.